Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Real World Data. Yes, indeed, my name is Eric Kavanagh. I'm going to be your humble, if excitable host for this first rendition of, I think, the big megatrend that's hitting business right now. That's right, this is yours truly, Eric Kavanagh. We have an all-star cast lined up for you today, folks. I almost can't even believe it. I'm extremely proud to have the Helen Arnold, President of the SAP Data Network, Danielle Grossi, Head of Business Development, Bhat, Head of Product Management, and Lukas Egger dialing in from Berlin, no less. What is real-world data? Well, I'll put it to you this way. We know that knowledge is power, so what is knowledge at scale? I'll put it to you this way. We're going to find out. Amazing things are happening right now all around the world. I would say that real-world data is going to fundamentally transform business as we know it. There are straws in the wind. Many of you have seen these. For example, if you go to the airport, and I've had this happen to me, the lady at the counter didn't know what was going on with the flight. I downloaded an app. I knew what was going on with the flight. What does that say when someone on the outside knows more than someone on the inside? Well, we're going to see that impact every aspect of business over the next few years. It's going to be fun. It's going to be tumultuous. It's going to be turbulent, but it's going to be great for those who pay attention and work hard as always. So we're going to learn all about real-world data and the SAP Data Network. What these folks are doing is absolutely amazing. I'm really excited to be a part of this. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Danielle Grossi. Send your questions in at any time, folks, through the chat window or the Q&A. We'll queue them up at the end of the webcast. With that, Danielle, take it away.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. I would actually love to have Helen Arnold, our president of our group, start us off. Helen, welcome.
Yeah, hello everyone. And so I'm so excited to be here today to start our new show and to tell you all about SAP Data Network and the amazing power in data. So what we often hear is data is the new asset. Our world is driven by data. Data is the asset of our time, and so on. And I really do agree. Data is the new asset for any company, but if the data is hidden, if it sits deep down in the basement of IT in data silos, this is not what we need now to make happen. So as we speak, at that particular moment here, not even 1% of the data is ever analyzed. And companies are generating an overwhelming amount of data, but they are really truly unable to use that data effectively. And this is what we see, the challenge. The topic big data is not new to us. And I'm so sure that many of you today that are on the show, that you have seen or driven big data initiatives over the last years. But we also know that these data initiatives, they have a high risk of failure. So you may say, so where are the extraordinary results? And it's true. When we ask executives about their data, big data projects, so only 27% of those executives refer to their data project as being successful. And yeah, we have great data lakes, but there is a massive value versus real business usage gap that we really have. And I have seen so many world champions in capturing and storing all the data. And you know, today we even move from collecting terabytes to collecting petabytes of data to exabytes of data. So from a technology point of view, if you think about it, we really solved the volume topic with data. But you know, unless you know how to perfectly swim in this lake, the business relevance is very, very, very limited to this data lakes. And then another aspect is, can you imagine that only 15% of all these Hadoop projects that they effectively deploy to production? So the question is, why is that? So top reason number one is, if you think about, there is a major shift in data processing that is happening right now, because exponentially more data is generated outside the company. So this means that contextualizing the data, linking that enterprise data with external data sources to extract this and to get to this actionable insights, this becomes really incredibly complicated. So, on average, integrating these disparate data sources, we see on average every single business application that is really fueled by data, there's on average 8 different data sources that really needs to get integrated, needs to get connected, needs to get contextualized in the business content. And yes, data comes from so many different places. If you think enterprise applications, social media streams, email systems, employee-created documents, etc., IoT data, data from drones, camera data. And if you think all this combining data, reconciling this, that it really can be used in an enterprise context, that is increasingly difficult. So, reason number 2 why these big data initiatives are really in the past were really difficult to drive to a successful outcome. So most of the time, these initiatives were very heavily attached to the technology. So many big data projects fail because they require significant resources, they run on a rigid architecture, and they didn't really have the flexibility needed. So often using technology components that they were not ready from an enterprise perspective to scale. But for me, the major topic and the major reason, and this is so also valid today, is this insufficient focus and the understanding of the business problem to solve. So this is when working with customers, they see value in their data, but they simply do not know what steps to take to leverage that potential, or just simply where to begin the journey to drive really amazing business outcomes through data. So when we look at data innovations and to leveraging the full potential in the data, so my top number 1 requirement is be very clear on what you are targeting with data-driven innovation. Hey, what is your purpose? Which growth opportunities can be captured through data and lead your business into the future? So this is like, why are you doing that? Is it for gaining competitive advantage through data? Is it improving productivity? Or even if it's just pioneering new digital services and that ultimately you would love to establish new sources of revenue. So from an outcome point of view, so why customers really make their data their key priority. So I've seen three areas. Number 1 is, what is the data capable to do for your top-line growth? Enabling new business models, generating new revenue streams. The second reason is how business processes can run simpler, more intelligent, more predictable. There's all the topic around reimagine your new business processes, and we see partners combining their data assets by doing this, so they create new processes that span across the entire value chain. And the number 3 reason is, hey, deliver rapid innovation so that you can accelerate on the digital transformation journey of the company. So that is why customers and why it's so exciting today working with data, because the opportunities are just incredible. Incredible in terms of what data can do on an enterprise context for your company, for top-line growth, or really bottom-line improvements at the end of the day. So when we prepared for the show, so this is what the show will not be, what I said, well, you know what, we have heard so much of this tech talk, and we know, of course, there's the underlying technology. We will see what is really required in order to drive a successful data project going forward. But what I would love to see in the show is really focusing on amazing business outcomes. That's why I was asking to get some of these examples being part of the first show, so that everyone has an understanding, hey, this is what data can really do, and this is what we are talking about when we talk about, hey, getting to amazing outcomes in weeks and not, for like months. And this is, therefore, I hope that you are not too disappointed by now, and that it's not about technology, or not everything is about technology. So from a data point of view, what's really nice is that you can innovate at the data level, creating really cool new stuff with agility, speed, without disrupting your core business on that perspective. And one example, of course, is, take the retail industry. So retailers, they can connect customers, e-commerce records with social media activities, hyperlocal data to get the pulse of the neighborhood. And if you think about coupling that with in-store data, point-of-sales data, as well as behavioral data from the loyalty programs, hey, we end up with unbeatable consumer experience, and we gain new insights. And exactly this new insights, if you imagine you infuse this new insights into the assortment, into intelligent supply chain processes, so you end up with a complete new level of a supply chain that constantly ensures that the proper merchandise is in stock. So this is really about data-driven process as opposed to the other way around. So such a closed-loop value chain, which is driven by intelligence on the consumer behavior and trend patterns, that is really redefining the rule book. So now comes the question. So if data really is the answer for businesses to drive competitiveness and growth, the question is, how do we apply the data intelligence to processes and driving innovations and using machine learning, advanced analytics, et cetera, really to achieve these game-changing outcomes? Then here, the challenge is clear, and as you can also see on this former big data project, the challenge and the success lies in the hard journey on bringing all these data innovations to life. So not as a one-off showcase, and this I've seen multiple times on a showcase perspective, but what we would love to achieve is a sustainable innovation, really being on a long haul. So here's our commitment. So we enable customers, and by the way, also SAP itself, as we internally use our own solutions, so we rapidly innovate through data. And what it is all about is really to have for you a ready-to-use, cloud-based, turnkey solution for data-driven innovation. So, if you go to the next slide. So what is that turnkey solution all about? So what you can see here is the abstract view on our turnkey solution. This is what we call Live Customer Cloud. So what we did, we brought together all technology building blocks, capabilities that are required to leverage the potential in data. So think about the power of big data, data processing, analytics, data science, machine learning, all working seamlessly together and run on our digital platform in the cloud. So we have built the #1 data engine that takes any kind of raw data and puts it through a process to cleanse, to anonymize, to standardize, to enrich with other data sources in an industrialized way. So, we're doing that is to ensure that we have a rock-solid data quality before we apply sophisticated data science, machine learning, to build a complete new data-driven application, and we make that accessible to the end users. That is, from a technology perspective, what is behind and where we run our business on. So our objective #1 is really making it easy for you and also for SAP internally to use the power of connected data in the enterprise environment. So we commit to tangible outcomes in weeks and not in months. And this is what is really nice to see. We developed a proven methodology that enables an execution discipline around data so that we really can commit to the business outcome in weeks. And this is what I call really a new SAP, because we are completely business outcome driven and totally execution focused. So because there is only what we want to make sure right from the beginning that there is the value creation from the get-go. So our methodology is what we call 3-4-3. To ensure an efficient and lean execution based on the SAP technology, what you just see here on our turnkey solution. So the 3-4-3, the 3 stays for 3 days ideation, then followed by 4 weeks rapid prototyping, and then 3 months for a sustainable proof of value. So you're going to have tangible results that are shown within 4 months. So the first ideation days are used to determine which use cases is the most impactful and provides the most value to your customer. And it's then be delivered from a technical and data science perspective. Then we take 4 weeks to build the prototype, and then we have a minimal viable product within 3 months. So at the end is really ideation to results within a 4-month period. And it's the secret source how we operate it, and we did this also SAP internally and with all our customers. So I would love to hand over, Danielle, to you and really to provide us an example that we see that amazing business outcome.
Yeah, I would love to. So you mentioned, Helen, the 3-4-3 is our secret sauce, and we've been able to apply that to internal customers, if you will, and external customers as well. So I'll jump right into our first customer, Schindler. I love the Schindler scenario because it's really a perfect example for how a traditional business process becomes digitized and reinvented. So I hope everybody knows who Schindler is. I'm sure you've been in one of their elevators or on one of their escalators. Let me just switch to the demo so I can show that to you. Just want to make sure everybody can see it properly. So Schindler is one of the world's leading elevator and escalator mobility solutions company in the world, and they move about 1 billion people a day, and they had a problem to solve, namely their elevator installation process. And they needed this process to really be simpler, to be digitized, to be more predictable, and they also wanted to eliminate latency in the process and really mitigate any predicted risk in the moment, to really make this process more real-time. So they used our offering that we showed you before, Live Customer Cloud, to create what we've coined Live Install. So let's dive in. What you can see here, if we look into the installation tracking for an elevator, we'll just go into here, and we can see Susan. Susan is our Schindler superintendent, and every superintendent at Schindler manages up to about 20 elevators at the same time. And you can see here that she is managing 18 elevator installations, and each elevator installation is a total of 7 steps to install an elevator. And so by connecting SAP and non-SAP data sources, even just this overview, Susan has a very clean and succinct overview of all of her elevator installations into one view. And then she can also see installation tasks and alerts, so the things that she has to get to right now in order to ensure that those projects stay on time and in budget and on track. And the last piece here that we see kind of in this overview is the risk and performance overview. So what you're seeing here is basically the layout of where all of the elevators are, and just a quick snapshot of the KPIs of how those projects are going, and are we green, are we red, what are we on that installation. So what she has to do here is she really has to get into these tasks and alerts to make sure these stay on track. And so what she can see here, she goes into this first view of this elevator installation. It's at step 5 of 7 steps. There are, of course, some sub-steps that need to be taken care of for each major milestone. And here, normally Susan would have to travel on-site to the construction site to check it out herself to see that the construction site is ready to go for the installation. But now, because we have been able to embed video imagery into the process, so in this case drone recording, she can take a look at the elevator installation site. She can approve it from the comfort of her office, and that can continue on so that the elevator fitter can start his work. And so the other thing that she has to do is she has to really look at this one. This is a red alert. Now what you can see here is that a delay is predicted. So before Schindler engaged with us on this journey, there was no prediction involved at all. So what would happen is by the time that they would actually get a report of what's going on with all of the elevator installations, the delays had already happened. There was no way to mitigate or pivot because it had already happened. The money had already been spent. And so here we can see, okay, there's a delay that's being predicted, and that's due to construction site readiness and to weather. And what we found out in this project, which you remember very well, Helen, is that most of the reasons why an elevator installation was delayed was either because the shaft wasn't dry enough, right, the shaft where the elevator needs to go into, or there was no power to the building, right? And we thought this was very interesting, but the problem was that the elevator fitter, the one who actually puts together the elevator, wasn't notified in time. So the elevator fitter would come to the construction site, he would book his hours, not be able to work, and leave. So ergo, lost money. And now we can see with the power of prediction in this process is that we're able to, with this additional weather data that has been integrated into this process, that we can now kind of get ahead of this delay. And we have another data set that we've connected here, which is workforce data, where we can say, okay, we have a delay of weather, but we can throw more workers at this and parallelize this step in order to catch up on at least the time. And so here we can see that we're going to add another person to the project. We can see that it's going to cost us more money, but at least we're going to make up the time. And now this delay has been mitigated. It's now back to green, and Susan can continue. So the last one that I'd like to show you is about the handover. So again, this is a step in the elevator installation process where, again, Susan would have to go on site to hand over the elevator. And this is normal because there's checks and balances, so an elevator fitter cannot check off his own work and hand over the elevator to the customer. That has to be done by a superintendent. But now, because we've also embedded augmented reality into the process, again, another type of data that we're able to process, she can do this check with the elevator fitter remotely using a glass. And then she can also review the sensor data. All of the new Schindler elevators have sensors on them. So she can check all of the sensors to make sure that all the sensors are firing properly. And she can hit approve. And now the elevator fitter can say, Mr. Customer, here's your elevator. I'll go ahead and turn it back to you. And so this is just showing how we've been able to make Schindler's life easier in terms of digitizing this process, bringing all kinds of different data sets together, all different data types together to be able to bring this into a visualization that's really easy to consume and easy to work with for Schindler. However, more importantly, we have an enhanced customer experience for Schindler's customer. And this is where you see here, we are initially in the installation tracking, but there's also a client installation tracking now. So James is the building owner. He's the one who's actually having the Schindler elevators and escalators installed. He can see everything that Susan can see. So with data, we were talking about it before, it's the unfiltered truth. So however well or not well the project is going, James is going to see that with full transparency. So he sees everything that Susan sees. He has access to all the different imagery and data that's in that process for him, and so he knows how things are going so that he can plan the rest of his building based on how these things are going. Now, once it's in production and everything is running, we have a 360-degree elevator life cycle view for the customer so that you can see how long the elevator has been operating, what the status is in general, what the upcoming maintenance tasks are, and then what's really great is this digital document center. So you're able to see at any time any security, safety audit, any type of that data or information, kind of as a Facebook profile, if you will, of your elevator at any time, all based in the cloud, of course. So this is a really, I know I spoke a lot. I love this scenario, as you know. I love this.
We all know it.
I know. I love this. Well, it's because, the reason why is because it's such a complex process that we were able to really bring together for Schindler, and it went far beyond what Schindler was initially thinking about how to resolve this, right? I mean, if you remember the conversations we had in the beginning with them, it was, you know, how do we fix this red problem we have, and we went far beyond that to really digitize.
And it's so exciting because you always go far beyond your, you know, where you started from. So it's all about serving your customers better, an amazing outcome. And so, Danielle, thank you for sharing the Schindler example. Yeah. I'm always excited.
I'm always excited. And if I can turn it over to Tara, I'd love to have Tara talk to us about, you know, we started with Schindlers and external customers, you know, but we started in our own backyard in the very beginning.
Yes, at the very beginning, really drinking our own champagne, making sure that you know, everything is working.
And we did that with Fieldlast, and Tara is our Fieldlast Pro, so I will Absolute champion, exactly. I will pass it over to her so that she can drive. And Eric, you just always give us a quick check if you can't see something, otherwise we'll assume everybody's good.
No, this looks great, and that was a fantastic example of really reinventing a mechanism for optimizing the entire business process life cycle, right? You're talking about start to finish, end to end, imagining the optimal way something can be done, and then delivering that. It's really fantastic. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead, Tara.
So this next example is an innovation that we did database for our Fieldglass solution. So Fieldglass, for those of you that don't know, is a vendor management solution, cloud-based to literally manage from hire to completion of projects for external workforce. What we did here was, with all of the data that's sitting in, Helen spoke about the challenges of using volume of data, but using it well to drive meaningful outcomes in an enterprise context. And that's what we did with this example here. So we started off with those millions of records, so clearly a volume topic, but then we created some very critical KPIs that any procurement manager in a company that wants to hire external workers would be interested in. And they basically boil down to the bill rate, the cost of labor, time to fill, and then the candidates per job. And those are all very easily represented in a user-consumable manner in this map that's shown below here, right in the middle of the page. The darker colors represent the states where the pay is higher. And it is also a function of the industries and the customers that are represented in those states as Fieldglass customers as well. But having defined these KPIs allows the procurement manager with a very, very easy to consume way to compare and contrast their hiring processes. A big thing about these millions of records being boiled down in this way is using these aggregated and anonymized records, you're able to provide the procurement manager filters by industry, by job category, by geographic location, and by time as well. One very cool feature of this product was we were able to really harness data science in order to normalize roles across all of these different companies. You know, oftentimes we'll see a job title represent something within a given company, but then, you know, a different company may call the same job role by a very different title. So how then do you get around to benchmarking and really providing that value of being able to compare across industries to see how you're doing? And so we used, Helen spoke also about outside insights using high quality data. You know, not all data is created equal, and so one thing we did was skills normalization. And this allowed us to utilize all of those millions of records, but across companies, across industries, by looking at the underlying skills, and then mapping jobs to a standard description, which then allows us to benchmark and really provide that meaningful value to companies. You know, oftentimes if we're navel-gazing, then it's not as helpful to enhance yourself or to improve yourself. But if you know what others in the industry, your peers or your fellow travelers in your location are doing, it provides you a benchmark to work towards. Some other very interesting data pieces that we wove into this solution is looking at outside data to provide contextual information to a hiring manager. Given the virtual nature of today's workforce, very often you have a procurement manager in one location, but they're trying to hire in a location where they don't have any background. And so providing things like what's the median rent, what's the average commute, what's the educational profile of that demographic in that other location allows the procurement manager two things. One is to determine their hiring strategy, but then also to answer questions from their prospective candidates as well. So right off the bat, we're going to start off with a simulation here. We're going to show you a procurement manager going through the process of hiring in the computer and mathematical occupations job category. And you saw immediately how all of these KPIs that are surrounding the map were updated as soon as I selected the job category. And this shows the power of real-time data. So, one other plug for this product I would say is it's not based off of data that was self-reported in some of these social professional websites that people will state what they were paid. But this is actually drawing from the pool of enterprise transactions that actually happened. This was pay that was paid out to a certain worker. Of course, we would never reveal PII information, but this is all aggregated and anonymized to give you that insight. So then what we do here is once we have observed that these KPIs have been updated in real time, we go off and do a quick location simulation. So this is another cool feature where if you have the flexibility to hire in any location of choice, then you want to be able to compare and contrast different locations to pick one that is most favorable to you. As a procurement manager, you may be driven by either cost or time to fill. These come out to be the basic KPIs that matter the most, and you, as you're thinking about whether you want to save money or you want to prioritize speed at which the project is executed, these two basic KPIs will allow you to compare and contrast different locations. So right down here you have, we're going to start out looking for software developers, and we've picked two specific software developer job roles that we think this procurement manager wants to hire for. Once again, notice how the KPIs that have been carried over from the previous page, they were all updated to reflect what has been happening in the market. And then as you look down further here, locations are provided with highest bill rate. They're sorted by highest bill rate, and then they're also sorted by lowest bill rate. And for each of those, you're provided the corresponding time to fill as well. Because sometimes, it may take you longer to hire, and that is a factor in your hiring decision. As you're looking at these prompts for different location options, you go down here and you're going to compare and contrast 3 different locations of choice. So let's say we have one worker to hire for 40 hours a week for 52 weeks of the year. So the first location we're going to pick here is San Jose, Sunnyvale, so really South Bay in the Bay Area. The second location we're going to select is Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma. And then the third one is going to be Salt Lake City. And as you see, pulling from those millions of records right away, these KPIs are updated. And so now you have a very cool comparison across those KPIs across these 3 locations. So the procurement manager is able to compare and contrast the bill rate and the time to fill. And you see here right off the bat, Salt Lake City comes out way ahead in terms of the bill rate being very, very low. And in comparing San Jose and Salt Lake City, the time to fill is very comparable as well. So if the procurement manager is very cost-driven, they're definitely going to go pick Salt Lake City. So clearly a lot of applications here for different scenarios for hiring. And then at the bottom here, you see a setup requisition. And one of the key things that Helen pointed out earlier was to make sure that these applications are integrated right back into the enterprise application. So right here, once the location has been selected, the hiring manager can go off and set up a requisition right within SAP Fieldlast, and off they go.
Yeah. Yep, we can go ahead and switch back. Yep,
yep.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
So, just to continue on that thread, you saw one example from the integrated manufacturing and components industry. Another one that we just showed was in the human capital management, human resources, LOB. What we do here is we take care of that end-to-end processing of the data and deliver a data-driven application on the right-hand side. So we go through ingesting the data, discovering it, understanding the profile of it, understanding coverage, understanding, what are some insights that are coming from it, and then, of course, processing the data itself. And then one of the biggest things Helen talked about in the beginning was to bring in those outside insights, to enrich and really hydrate your enterprise data. So it could be geospatial enrichment, it could be weather enrichment to drive those insights, or social sentiment analysis as well. And then, of course, there have to be data science, machine learning models and algorithms in there to draw out those insights and to convert them back into action that can be driven through the enterprise application. So that's really SAP's wheelhouse, is understanding how all of that end-to-end business works, and then to be able to incorporate that back into the enterprise application itself. And so having done these different engagements with customers, we have developed what I like to say empathy for these industries, and really an understanding, and also a ready-made solution. Think about enriching the data with geospatial elements or with weather elements. We don't need to reinvent that. We already have the connections established to those data sets. We also have machine learning models that are in place now across several industries here, which allows us to accelerate customer projects. And going back to Helen's 3-4-3 methodology, really to be able to deliver that data-driven application inside of 4 months. So that is very critical. That is absolutely our secret sauce on how we're able to deliver so quickly and yet in a meaningful way for customers to derive money out of their data.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly right. So if we think about, what the examples that we've talked about already, the fact that Schindler we put together in 4 months, Fieldlast Live Insights, we have a second product that we've also put together in that span of time, and I know that we have some people who would like to hear a little bit more about the technical details, so maybe some of the data orchestration and pipelines. Should we hand it over to Lukas to talk, or would you like to kind of?
No, I think it makes absolutely sense, Lukas, that you just iterate on the data orchestration, so how we're going to set up these data pipelines in such a short period of time. The secret sauce really is the empathy for the industry, understanding what is required from a data point of view in order to leverage and to get to the business potential as soon as we commit to. This is 3-4-3 methodology. So, Lukas, over to you.
Thank you so much. And yes, I will touch on all the topics that we just mentioned from a technical perspective in 2 parts. So first of all, we will talk a little bit about what was needed for TWI and for our own Live Insights product. And at the very end of the entire presentation, there's also a slide that will put our efforts into context of the overall architecture and how we used best-in-class technology of SAP to build a bigger picture and the product that can support all of these different accelerators in the different industries and still work on the tight deadlines that we set for ourselves. So I think after the 2 demonstrations, and thank you, Danielle and Tara, it's clear how the best data-driven products work seamless in a way that they integrate at the point where the decisions are made. And I think that for us was always, or is always, the biggest challenge when Helen says to unearth hidden data, to not just look at the data, but rather put it in context. And there's a misconception because most people still think of data as oil, as if it had intrinsic value, but rather I like to think of data as a renewable energy. It can only drive a decision at the point where it's happening. So you can't really store solar or wind energy, and in much the same notion, you need the right data, the right frequency, rightly enriched with the correct external information, corroborated by the official data that you have at hand to really drive business outcomes. And to expose this data and drive your processes, that always is a messy affair, to be honest. And so from the very beginning, we knew that to enable ourselves and our customers, we needed a very versatile solution that could handle all of the different applications that we envisioned. Because ultimately, if you're talking about data-driven innovation, I mean, if you stress innovation, it's about not knowing beforehand where the road will ultimately lead you to, right? So, for instance, with Schindler, only after we did a couple of iterations with their data, we knew what was the right way to tackle the problem and how to build models, machine learning models that could help the fitters and the supervisors at the time where they needed their help to raise warning signals before something happens that could affect the business negatively, right? But let's go back to TWI, and before I jump into all the different data sets and how we work with them, let me give you a quick touch on what we used in terms of technology, because I already saw that one of our attendees asked whether we would be using Data Hub. And I think that's absolutely spot on, well identified. Data Hub right now is the best SAP solution to define data-driven processes across complex enterprise landscapes. And it specifically addresses a couple of issues that we were very, well, we knew that we had to get right. Specifically, we knew that we need a single system view. So for data governance, for monitoring, for orchestration, we cannot rely on different solutions each and every time. We also knew that centralizing all of the data all the time would not be an option. I mean, how many people have been in data warehouse projects to build yet another data lake that in the end didn't come through? And also, since we're working with innovation and data science, we knew that technology is rapidly evolving, and especially data science, so we needed flexibility to incorporate different types of services and different methodologies, whether it's API or models that are hosted on machine learning foundations. We wanted to be very open what we could use. Right. So coming back to TWI, we were faced with the situation that we needed to bring together different data sources from multi-posting, success factors, and Fieldglass. So as we already discussed, Fieldglass is the contingent labor force solution, and success factors handles all of the permanent requisitions. Now, each and every solution has a lot of very interesting data, but ultimately we were in a position where we needed to be able to compare the data sets. So we needed to standardize, normalize, and most of all enrich the data. And that really happened through the use of Data Hub and our machine learning technologies. And as Helen also said, to really get the complete picture, you cannot rely on your inside data. You need to corroborate and add data that helps you get a bigger picture. So what we added to the data of our workforce solutions was geolocation data, statistical data, and standardization data. And this data is not just, don't think of this data as just being added. So as if you would be like throwing a bunch of data into the mix and that's it, but rather it helped us create new solutions that arise from the different data sources. To give you a tangible example, we were facing a problem with the data quality from one of the data providers, but we really desperately did not want to lose any of the self-reported data, so we knew we needed to impute or come up with sophisticated solutions for spotty data. And since we had statistical data, we were able to create impute technology that could fix some of the aspects. And at the time where we realized that this was possible, we had one of the data sources solved in terms of data quality, we would move on to the next. And sometimes we work with pure data science solution, but quite honestly, very often, it also means bringing the people who are responsible for the processes in and enabling them to do their jobs better. So to give you another example of what that really means, deploying a data-driven innovation, it can also mean supplying the right tools for the trade and to enable the people. We created, for instance, the validation interface for Fieldlast. So all of the data that gets now automatically classified for the job description gets manually feedbacked by experts. And this used to be a quite tedious manual process, and we revamped it with an interface. And now this has been made faster by an order of magnitude, both creating new training data and improving the data quality. So all in all, our LCC capabilities revolve around getting the pipelines, the governance, and the sharing right in an environment where we can plug and play all the useful accelerator services or components that are needed. And we can drill down into more detail about any of the aspects of the TWI product, but also I would, at the end, would offer to show a glimpse on the architecture, and then much rather jump on any questions you have, so we can, get to the questions that are of most interest to you guys. So that's it for this slide, and I'm handing back over to you guys in Palo Alto.
Thanks. Thanks, Lukas.
Thank you, Lukas.
I hope that was a good tech deep dive from our head of data science, Lukas. Thank you for that. Helen, do you want to round up for us, or Eric? Are there any burning questions in the chat?
Well, I would love. Yeah, I know there are a couple of questions about the hub, and Lukas, maybe if you could go into explaining what this is. And I've been trying to wrap my head around it a bit myself, and it seems to me that, you know, in the SOA days, in the service-oriented architecture, we talked all about the enterprise service bus, and I feel like there's an analogy that could be drawn to the data hub as a sort of massively parallel ESB for data. Is that accurate, or can you describe a bit more in detail how it actually gets the job done? Because this is not like an ETL tool, right? You're talking about delivering access at scale across countless different sources, right?
Absolutely, and that's a very good question. So first of all, the paradigm of Data Hub is to use the data wherever it resides. So instead of forcing data to be moved around and normalize it again in yet another database, Data Hub is all about defining pipelines and processes on the data and pushing down those processes to where the data resides. So ultimately, what you're doing is less managing the data itself, but rather defining how the data goes from A to B and what should happen with it, and being very open in terms of what you can connect. So it's very agnostic. You can plug in cloud storage devices, our own OpenStacks with object stores. You can connect, obviously, to HANA, but also all the other different tools of the trade, like Hadoop clusters, Spark clusters, whatsoever. And that really offers you the flexibility that is needed to rapidly innovate and create data-driven products. And there's the notion of not only pipelines, but if you go into more details, those pipelines are driven by connectors or modules that are tailor-made for one specific task. And so there's a lot of reusability, and well, it ultimately changes how you view data and how you can drive the methodology. So it not only is a technological new way of tackling the problem, it also lends itself very well to our methodology of 343.
Yeah, and just very quickly, one of the challenges with traditional data movement and data integration, you kind of alluded to this, is that you wind up with so much redundancy, and there's such a brittle nature to the systems that they can become very difficult to manage, and they're very time-intensive and error-prone. And what we're really talking about is a whole new way, I would have to call it a revolutionary new way of accessing and leveraging data that does not require you to have all of these brittle, error-prone, time-intensive, and resource-intensive processes, right?
Absolutely. And I think our aspiration goes even a step further, right? So once you have managed to wrangle your data and be, compliant and care about lifecycle management and all those things that, need to be done, frankly, we want to push it further. And I think that's also where the sweet spot of the data network is, because we provide a semantic layer that not only lets you think about how can data enrichment, transformation, and the building of data-driven products work, but also how to push it to the next level. And what I mean by that is that really the components that we're building are reusable for other projects again. So we're feeding, well, an environment and an ecosystem of insights. And I think that's the fundamental difference from the traditional way of handling those projects.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, back to you guys in Palo Alto.
All right, maybe, so thank you, Lukas, for really providing a little bit of more details. If you think about committing to the business outcomes that we do in a very fast period of time, so we rely on ready-to-use technology, and the SAP Data Management Suite is exactly what we need, because it's all about this data lifecycle management and all the features and functionalities you need around data. So from my perspective, sometimes I talk about an ERP of data that we have here with the Data Hub and the Management Suite around data. The other element is it's not only about how you're going to process the data and, have all the features of and functionalities that, Lukas, you iterated on, but it's also about the content, of course, the number of connectors that we have that enables us to rapidly go and provide the business outcomes. So therefore, I'm really first of all, I have the most amazing team, as you can see. So we are really passionate about this business outcomes and making sure by industry we understand what's required, having this empathy to rapidly innovate with data. It comes with content services, and it comes also with technology services, of course, with data science, with all these elements that are pre-configured so that we can commit to that rapid value that we do and realize with our customers. So I'm very excited because you were just seeing two of those products that we developed. Of course, we have more, and we have more to share. Sapphire is upcoming. Customers are joining us on stage. So really stay tuned. I'm also looking forward to our next show. Again, it will be a combination between technology and what does it take from a data science perspective, from a technology perspective to deliver such business outcomes. But I really would love to share more of these examples. The next one will be in the financial services industry, for instance. I would love to share something, and also for retail.
Yeah, the preview for Sapphire is a bit of a few more customers that we have. I'm not going to give everything away because it's going to be very exciting at Sapphire, the customers that we'll have with us. And then, of course, for our next show, we will have a customer on the show as well to tell the story about our engagement.
Yeah. And very often I'm asked, hey, Helen, you're dealing in data network, you're dealing with data, so that's at the end, in essence, is business analytics that you're doing. But if you think about what you were just seeing, if you're pushing the boundary, the envelope much further, and it's not for me a classical analytics play. If you see Tara, when you introduced the contingent workforce solution based that transactional data, the truth that comes from millions of these transactional records. So it changes the entire recruiting process, and it's always about providing the transparency, but it's not ending there, because you then simulate, you provide the possibility to act with the data, to decide, to drive certain decisions on a completely different level of transparency. Then you get to an intelligence that you are infusing back to the underlying business process. So you make the business process much more intelligent. It's a complete different era that we are now seeing in that enterprise context. Because of that data and because the technology is ready, because we have all the components, machine learning, data science, everything comes together so nicely. But at the end of the day, the only KPI that matters is business outcome. So therefore, I'm really excited because even in the software business, the application development, there is a new paradigm. It's all infused with this data intelligence, defining new processes, or changing the processes as of today. And we have seen one of these digitalization of one classical process, starting in our S4 system, and then having much more data sources, combining IoT, everything in order to deliver a much bigger value to customers and also internally to have that productivity gain.
Yeah. And one of the things that really gets me excited about this whole new way of doing business and leveraging data is it really does remove so much of the guesswork. And I think what we're going to learn over the next 3 to 5 years or so, because I think this will take time, it's that massive of a transformation, we're going to learn just how much we were guessing and just how wrong we were at various times, right? That's why you guys use this term unfiltered truth. I think just in terms of the Fieldglass application, when you can see from real data aggregated and anonymized exactly what people are making for this job or that job in this city or that city, that is a tremendous, that's a sea change, it's a step change, as they would say in chemistry. And so now, instead of trying to postulate what someone should get paid, you know what someone should get paid, and you also know what skill sets they should have. And again, the more you leverage this data, the more you learn from it, the more accurate you become. And one of the coolest comments I heard from someone is that you can use this real-world data to fine-tune your own instincts. Because instinct still matters, gut feel still matters, but you want to make sure you're in the right ballpark, right, Helen?
Yeah, I'm completely 100% with you, Eric, because what limits us today is our imagination. And it's like, that's why I'm always saying 10x your ambition and make sure that you're not starting on, hey, this is a little analytical play. And this is what we also experience with customers, by the way. You start with the as is of today and the environment where you're living in, and then very quickly you reach the next step. And if we were to be able to do A, B, C, D. And so data allows us to do this, and this fine-tuning on the instinct, absolutely, And we're gonna, we are just at the starting point, really, just at the beginning. That's why it's so exciting. And that's why, that show here, Eric, is so spot on.
And it's in every industry, to your point, and folks, in our future episodes will dive into different verticals, things like retail, things like financial services, and very quickly in our remaining 2 minutes or 90 seconds or so, just think about the amount of data that is available to marketers, to salespeople and to marketers. You're talking about now it's the MarTech 7,000. I've actually tracked this space for a while. 7 or 8 years ago, it was like the MarTech 500. That means marketing technology software companies. There were 500 of them. 6 years ago, it was up to 1,000. Then it was 2,000. Then it was 4,000. Then it was 5,000 last year. And it's 7,000 this year. 7,000 different marketing and sales automation software players are providing data. And if you can have connectors into all those different systems, the amount of visibility you can get is just mind-blowing and game-changing. And so all I can say is it's going to be a lot of fun riding this wave, and that's really what it is. It's a wave. It's a wave of data. It's real-time. That's why you really need solutions that can function at scale. That's why you need, I have to say, a solution as robust and powerful as what we've talked about today, because the old world way of doing these things is just not going to work. It's just not going to work. So with that, folks, maybe any final comments from you, Helen, or anyone from the team?
We're great. Thank you so much for joining our first show. We're super excited, as Helen said, and we have so much more to show you and so much more to come. So
yeah, always leave them wanting more. Okay, folks.
Yeah.
We hope to see you down at Sapphire. This has been a wonderful exploration, and it is just the beginning. I'm telling you, real-world data at scale is the next megatrend in business. It's going to change everything. Thanks for your time and attention. We'll talk to you next time, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.